Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome. We're just opening it up about 1 or 2 minutes early, just so we can let everyone trickle in. So while we let everyone trickle in, if you want to maybe pop your name and where you're from, what organization you're from into the chat box, we'd love to hear from you. We're always happy to see new and familiar faces. So please introduce yourself into the chat box before we get started here. We got Ines, Maria, Vernell. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, tell us where you're from, too.
Yeah, tell us where you're from, what organization you're coming from, maybe.
City, province, state.
We got Stephanie from Boulder, Colorado, Vernell from Habitat for Humanity, Manitoba. Very cool. We're going to start this webinar in about 30 seconds to a minute. So please hang tight while we let everyone trickle in. We got Andrea from Northern Alberta. Susan, hello, from Violet Seas in Seattle. Got lots of people from all over North America, it looks like. We got Michelle from Squamish. Very cool. I was there last weekend. I hiked Mount Garibaldi. All right, so we're coming up on time here, so I think we'll get started. Well, welcome everyone and good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mel Bilko and I'm Keela's Head of Community Engagement. We also have Ines Alverne on the back end of things today, and you might see her in the chat box helping out with any technical questions, so feel free to say hi to her. She also curates our wonderful newsletter that she puts out every week, so I highly encourage you to subscribe to that if you haven't already. And if you're new to Keela, welcome. For those of you who don't know what we do, Keela is a complete nonprofit software that gives you powerful and also intelligent tools to manage your donors, to help market your nonprofit, and to ultimately raise more money. So if you'd like to check more out, please check out our website or even book a demo to chat with one of our sales consultants. We're very lucky to have our speaker with us today, but before I go ahead and introduce him, I just want to remind everyone about a couple of things. So the first is that this session will be about 45 minutes in length, and about half of that will be a Q&A session, and we'll leave that towards the end. We encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A or the chat box throughout the presentation, and then we'll get to them all at the end, like I said. We're all probably familiar with Zoom, but just want to remind you to please select all attendees and panelists so that everyone can see your question if you want that. And lastly, all of these sessions will be recorded, and you'll receive the recording along with the slide deck by the end of this week, if not by the end of today. All right, so with that, let's get started. Today, we are very lucky to have Tony Martignetti joining us again to talk about a subject he is super passionate about. We had Tony present a webinar with us back in August, and we couldn't be happier to invite him back here again today. He had such great feedback. So Tony has specialized in planned giving since 1997, starting as a frontline fundraiser, and he evolved to consulting in 2003. He also hosts the #1 podcast for nonprofits, the Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio, Big Nonprofit Ideas for the Other 95%. Today, Tony returns to explain planned giving basics and to share his low-cost, low-lift promotion and solicitation tips. If you missed him in August, as I mentioned, he'll review fundamentals and then reveal expanded marketing ideas to solicit valuable planned gifts to your potential donors. And with that lovely intro out of the way, I will pass it off to you now, Tony, and let's get started.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mel. We are all in fundraising. So we understand the importance of the ask. That's what we're talking about today. Make the ask. If you're not asking for gifts, you're not going to get gifts. And I want to tell the story of my very first ask, which was in 7th grade when I had a terrific crush on Lisa Maggio. And I chose to ask her to go steady at our 7th grade dance. I was there in that gymnasium with the high gloss varnish on the floor, poisoning everybody. I had on my powder blue leisure suit with the contrasting thread on the lapels. My shirt, a fine Kiana polyester. My shoes were blue plastic from Buster Brown. If there had been a fire, I wouldn't have burned. I would just smoke and melt. I saved my last dance for Lisa. Lisa saved her last dance for Albert Moran. So I had the pain of watching that spectacle. When it was over, I got so close to Lisa in the middle of the dance floor that I put my hands on her shoulders and I made my ask. Lisa, would you go steady with me? With all her 7th grade charm and sweetness, she said, "You are standing on my dress." Years later, Albert and Lisa married. Then sadly, they separated and divorced. I'm an attorney and I handled that divorce. I handled it for Albert, and Lisa has been paying the price ever since. Now, if you were with me in August, you heard that story. But I don't want people thinking, oh man, this is just a rehash. Tony Martignetti sucks. It's the same story he told the last time. So for the folks who already heard that story, and for those of you who are joining me for the first time, so you've heard that classic story. For the folks who are with us again from August, I got another story, because I will not have you saying Tony Martignetti sucks. Okay. Yeah. Tony Martignetti, I've heard of that guy. He kind of sucks. He doesn't suck too bad, but he told the same story. I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that. So here's another story. If you were with me in August and you're thinking, what's this guy doing? He's like playing a recording from August. I saw on Twitter that the average attention span is about 9 seconds. And I thought, that's just enough time for my mother to create guilt. I'm coming over for dinner. Can't you stay for the night? I'm coming to stay for the night. Can't you stay for the weekend? I'm coming to stay for the weekend. Take me on a cruise. I'm taking you on a cruise. Why don't you move back home? I'm moving back home. Let's get cemetery plots together. That is my mom asking, making asks, constantly making asks. So we're talking about the ask here. So you see that through line. You see the through line. It's all relevant. This is not just, non sequitur humor, right? It all's got a through line. All right. So we're talking about plan giving, making the ask. Of course, before we get into this, I want to thank Keela for hosting again. Had a lot of fun last time in August. So I was very grateful that they have me back today. And here's what we're going to be talking about: plan giving, making the ask. What it is, where to get your program started, who you're going to be asking, how do you open the conversation, why you're not talking about death, marketing asks plus, right? Because this is enhanced. We're going beyond. If you were with us in August, you're going to hear more, going to learn more. And I've got some multi-channel continuing ed, and we're going to reserve roughly half the time for Q&A. So definitely get your questions in throughout, and Mel will be checking them out, and she's going to read them off at the end. But we leave in a lot of time for your questions to get answered. Arguably the most important part of this. Okay, what it is, we got to review some basics. So what is it we're talking about? This is a way of giving where people are thinking about their long-term plans before they make a gift to your nonprofit or your charity, right? They're thinking about their retirement plan, their estate plan. Now, I just said nonprofit charity. I know in Canada, I know there's a distinction. Only charities can issue receipts for tax deductibility. I tend to use nonprofit and charity interchangeably. I say nonprofit a little more often, but you'll know in Canada, I'm talking about charity if I say nonprofit, okay? And for today, what the plan giving that we're going to talk about today, this is cash to your nonprofit at the donor's death. All right, so this is long-term fundraising, long-term. Where do you get started? You get started with charitable bequests. Those are the planned gifts that we're going to talk about today. And you could go a lot further. And I talked about going further in August. You can, if you weren't with us in August, you could look back at that recording. I talked about other gift options. We're not talking about those at all today because this is a quick shot, 45 minutes. We're talking about where you get started, charitable bequests. And if you take a look at the beginning, the first letter of each word, yes, I spelled out Keela Labs, first letter of each word. So know that you may not be told about this charitable bequest because in the US, and I'm sure this is true in Canada as well, people are people. It's so private that for every will that you know that you're in, there's another 7 to 8 that you're not going to be told about. It's just too personal. It's too private for people. Even when they've included you, they still think it's just too personal and private. They're not going to tell you. So odds are you won't be told because, like I said, it's 1 for every 7 or 8 that you're in. It's easily the most popular planned gift. Yes, by far. Any planned giving program, name it anywhere, it's going to have 75, 80% of their planned gifts are bequests. That's why we're starting with these bequests, these gifts by will. This is a gift alongside loved ones, husband, wife, children, grandchildren. Alongside those dear loved ones, there's a gift in a will for you. And these are the most popular planned gift. You think of the biggest charities you want, and I guarantee you look at their planned giving program, that vast majority, 75, 80% of their gifts are gifts by will, the charitable bequest. So that's the place to start. Expect cash, but anything of value. Of course, you know, I think we all understand that. Anything of value can be left in a will. You could get something that's non-cash, could be property, art collection, anything of value could be left to you. But it's most likely going to be cash. That's why I say expect cash, because most of the gifts are gifts of cash. Look back to giving history to be amazed. That's because this is for your very modest donors as well as your wealthier donors. But folks of very modest means who are making small gifts to you during their life, odds are, I've seen this so many times, I've seen this hundreds of times. You look back at the giving history when you find out that someone has included you in their will, and you'll see lots and lots of gifts through the years, maybe 30 gifts in 20 years or something like that. And they may not be big. They may very well not be big, but you'll see long, loyal giving history. And for that reason, the next bullet, always respect your small lifetime donors. You may prefer to say modest, I say small. People who are giving at low levels, you at the very least, you have to be acknowledging those gifts. There's no reason anymore in 2021 that we're not acknowledging every single gift. I don't care how low it is. Every gift should be recognized, acknowledged. Understand the value in residual estates. That's because the residual estate just has that word residue. People might think, oh, it's like dollars or just a couple pennies or something. No. You can have a lot of money in residual estates, and you can be a beneficiary of a residual estate. What's the residual estate? It's what's left over after expenses of death are paid, like funerals, taxes if they happen to be due. And then after bequests are paid. So that's where the husband, the wife, children, grandchildren may have outright dollar amount gifts, $10,000, $500,000, whatever it might be. After those are paid and those expenses are paid, then what's left is the residue. But there can be a lot of money in the residual estate, easily millions of dollars in the residual estate. And then that just gets divided up by percentages. So the person leaves the money they want to leave up front, exact dollar amounts, and then they say, and the rest and residue and the remainder of my estate. That's a fancy lawyer talk. Sorry about that. That's just the way it's worded in wills, but it doesn't matter. The residue gets divided the following way: 10% to my niece, 20% to someone else, and then the other percentages. And your organization can be one of those beneficiaries of that residual estate. And it's very easy for donors, right? Because everybody knows what a will is. Everybody knows they should have a will. Lots of people don't who should have a will, but we're working on that. And you can raise awareness. But it's very easy. Everybody understands it. You're just referring them back to their attorneys to do the work, to add a bequest gift, a bequest paragraph for your nonprofit. So it's very simple, right? This is the easiest planned gift. And that's another reason this is the place to start. So who are you asking? You're asking the folks who love your work. And how do we know they love your work? Because their giving history is loyal. It's long. It's consistent. Like I was saying that example before, 30 gifts in 20 years. That's an incredibly loyal donor. And I don't care how small the gifts are. If they're literally $5 every time, times 30 gifts over 20 years, that's a great planned giving prospect because they plan for you sometimes multiple times a year, but at least once a year. And it doesn't have to be that loyal. You know, it could be 20 gifts in 20 years or even 15 gifts in 20 years. That's a very loyal donor. So we're looking for that giving consistency, and we're looking for people roughly 55 to 60 and over, because that's where folks start thinking of their estate plan as a way of giving back. Not that they first start thinking about their estate plan, do that long before 55, but as a vehicle for giving back to organizations that have been important to them. That's roughly the age where people think about it for that purpose. So that's where you want those folks. That's who you're asking. Those are your plan giving prospects right there. Mandatory takeaway. This is not only for your wealthy donors. I've mentioned it a couple times. People of very modest means, small donors, don't only look to your major gift program. That's a mistake. People of very modest means who've been giving to you with the kind of loyalty I talked about and who are that age, they are great plan giving prospects. How do you open the conversation with these great plan giving prospects? Always keep this in mind. All right. This giving is a natural extension of the giving that they're already doing for your organization. It just flows because they are such loyal, committed donors. So a gift in their estate plan flows naturally from all the giving that they've been doing. So for handwritten notes, calls, letters, face-to-face. So, I mean, I prefer face-to-face meetings, but obviously those are off the board for a while now. So I put handwritten notes, which would ordinarily be my number 2. So outside of pandemic, the way I would prefer to be talking to people about planned giving is face-to-face, handwritten notes, calls, and letters. But we got to move face-to-face to the back in deference to the pandemic, which will end sometime. And Canada, by the way, I got props to our northern neighbors for, yes, you're seeing an increase this fall, but not anything like every other country in the world is higher than you. So congratulations. I did some reading about your brilliant public health officials and just compliance, and props to you. You doing it the right way. Well, leave it there. You're doing it the right way. So congratulations for that. Okay. So we can't do the face-to-face right now, but so I would substitute handwritten notes. Now, if you know somebody well, maybe calls go in front of handwritten notes. Okay. If you know somebody well enough to do that, but either way, personal. All right. And here's, I'll give you, you could use my quote if you want. We're considering gifts by will. We're encouraging gifts by will. Is that something you'd consider? All right. Massage that, work with, put it into your own words if you prefer, but that's the idea. We kicked off a campaign, or we kicked off, don't use a plan giving program. We kicked off a wills campaign or a wills program. It means we're encouraging gifts by will. Is that something you'd consider? All right. And then leave it open. There you go. There you go. It's important. This is a personal subject. So keep it sincere, genuine, straightforward. All right. You don't have to beat around the bush. That's why I say straightforward. Remember the first bullet. It's a natural extension of the giving that they've been doing for years, maybe decades in your organization. That's how to open the conversation. And why is that conversation not about death? There it is. Because it's about how important it is that your mission and your values continue in the long term, for decades, for generations to come. That's what the conversation is about. That's why it's not about death. Big misconception in planned giving. You're talking about the long-term value of your work continuing. That's the conversation you're having. Okay, when we're getting into marketing, with the asks, now we got a whole bunch of other kinds of asks, right? All kinds of marketing promotion you can do. I say always include these three as often as you can. Your legal name, your office address, and your tax ID number. Of course, in the US, that's your EIN, your employer identification number. And in Canada, that's your BN, your business number. Include those three. Maybe it's a little overkill. Probably any two of those would be sufficient, but I like to be cautious. Belts and suspenders. So do all three. That's what I advise all the clients I work with, all the nonprofits I've worked with. Put all three, play it safe. There's no confusion. For events, put a few speaking points into your remarks, the speaker's remarks and sidebar in your program. It's brief. We kicked off a wills program. We're encouraging gifts by will. It's so easy for you to do, to include us. It means so much for the long-term value of our work to be continuing for decades to come. These are very valuable gifts for us. They'll mean a lot. It's so easy for you to do. Talk to Mel at the end of the evening, or give us your email and we'll get back to you, or, however you want to do follow-up. But just like a minute. It doesn't have to be lengthy. Does not have to be lengthy. Something else you could do at events, recognize your plan giving donors. It's virtual, have them wave their hands. Can you read them off by name if there's not too many of them? In the beginning, there probably aren't too many. Once you have their consent, of course. Do they mind if you read their names? Or just as a group? We want to thank those of us, those folks who are now waving their hands. They're raising their hands. They have put us in their wills. And we're so, so grateful for their support, for that long-term support, for that giving that they're showing us for decades to come. We're so, so grateful. Do it by name or en masse. When we get back to in-person events, when I go to client events, I walk around with a piece of paper in my pocket and a pen, and I have a list of names that I know I want to talk to. Folks who have RSVP'd, I know there are certain people I want to make sure I talk to. Now, those are not the only ones, naturally, but I have a list of folks I want to talk to. And when I excuse myself, or I'm in a corner, or I'm alone, or I check the list and I make some notes. That's why I'm carrying a pen with me. Also, always carrying business cards too. I presume you already know that part. Those three things. Never go to an event without a list of people you want to talk to, pen, business cards. For print, sidebars, articles in your newsletter, annual report, sidebar. It's like 30, 40, 50 words. It's so easy for you to include us in your will. We're encouraging gifts by will. Here's the three things you need. Remember the 1, 2, 3. Put the three things in. It's that simple. In your annual report, recognize your plan giving donors. There, I would list them by name. Again, if you have their consent, that's an ideal place to do it. Of course, you're inviting other folks to join them. Testimonials in print, or we'll see it in digital too. They're gold, of course, and it doesn't have to be long. It could just be a simple pull quote, maybe just a paragraph. You don't have to write a 300-word essay on the person's life and what brings them to your work. It's not necessary. Plus, it'll take you so much longer to get their approval on it. Because if it's a whole article, they're going to go through, line by line. Give them 20, 30 words to proof at the most, maybe a 10-word quote. Is this okay? Does this sound okay to you? Boom. You'll get a response back a lot faster than writing a 300-word testimonial for one of your print channels. Remember, sincere, straightforward, genuine, right? And as I said, include those three things: legal name, office, tax ID. Digital, same thing. Sidebars, articles, don't have to be long. Simple page on your website. Yeah, just, again, simple testimonials, pull quotes, maybe a picture of a couple or a couple pictures. What are you talking about on your website? The long-term value of your work, your mission, your values continuing for decades and generations to come. How important that is. And you tie those pull quotes or those testimonials into that. There's your plan giving page. Could be one page. I say no calculators, please. You can pay hundreds, $1,000 a month for these fancy calculators. They click on, the person clicks over, it's branded as your visual identity, but they're into some plan giving encyclopedia where they can look up charitable lead unit trust with makeup provision or something. Oh, don't go the calculator route. You don't have to pay for that nonsense. No, don't do it. Not now, and not for the first 5 years of your program, I'd say, at least. You don't need the fancy calculators. You're talking about gifts by will. Keep it simple, genuine, straightforward. Here's an idea for your email signature. You can include us in your will. Ask me how. I saw it on a business card once too. Somebody said something similar to that on a print business card. Wherever you can do it. I'm the evangelist for planned giving. Wherever you can put planned giving in front of people, I would never say no. Direct mail. If it's not focused on planned giving, it's an existing package. You're already doing for some other purpose. You put a little buck slip in, where I'm envisioning buck slip is like a third of a 8.5 by 11-inch piece of paper. Print 3 on a page, drop one in. It's so light, doesn't increase your postage costs, and you include the 3 things and say the same thing that we've been talking about. We're encouraging gifts by will. It's so easy for you to do. Here's the 3 things you could share with your attorney to include us in your will. And if you'd like more information, and then a contact person, right? If you can't afford devoted direct mail, of course, I know direct mail is expensive. Maybe you can't devote direct mail to planned giving. That's why I'm giving you lots of other options. But if you can, it's the gold standard. You know, you're writing to people 55, 60 and over. They're opening their direct mail. They're opening that postal mail. Okay. It still works very, very well. I see it time and again with clients. Lots of people returning reply cards, asking for more information, often saying they've already included the organization in their will. It's a gold standard if you can do it. Always include a reply device with lots of options. Yeah, options like, I would consider doing it. I've thought about doing it. I would consider including your nonprofit in my will. I would consider doing it. I've thought about doing it. I'd like more information about including your organization in my will. And of course, I've already done it. You're already in my will. And then here's another idea. Next time you do your next run of 5,000 reply envelopes, the envelopes that people are using to send back to you, whether it's a BRE or just a standard reply envelope, put something on the back flap, a little check off for self-selection. I'm interested in information. Please send me info on including the organization in my will. You know, so that's on the back flap where they seal. And for those of you who are with us in August, you see I fixed that spelling error. Remember, it said check of, the last word there, check off. It was check of, and I asked you to flag it, and a couple of you did in the surveys. You can't have that. So I fixed that egregious spelling error from last time. So this is where we've been.
That was so misleading before. Thank you for fixing that.
You see, it's important. Okay, so this is what we've covered. All that stuff, and I got some multi-channel continuing ed. I hope the questions are coming in. If they're not in, if you didn't get your question in, get it in now. You got another minute or so before questions start, before Mel starts curating and checking out. So please get your questions in. We've got a lot of time for that. Multi-channel. Oh, that's right. This comes before the multi-channel. Before the multi-channel continuing ed comes mandatory takeaway, which in August it was a please. I just said please fill out your survey, but I switched it. I upgraded it. Now it's a mandatory takeaway. You got to fill out your survey. That little graphic there is what Mel sent me once when she was showing me what it was going to look like. But that's old now. Now Keela is so much more advanced. So much more advanced now. You're going to get your survey at the end of this webinar. Then it's not going to be a separate email. It's going to come right when the webinar ends. The poll kicks in. So please do your survey. Tell Keela, tell me what you think. Please. Okay. Mandatory. Well, it was please. Now it's mandatory. Okay. Multi-channel continuing ed. I have a PDF, Unleash the Game-Changing Power of Planned Giving at Your Nonprofit. So if you want the free how-to guide, it has not changed since August. So, I mean, give me a break. It's only been 2 months. So it's the same. So if you got it in August, you don't want that again. Skip that. But if you weren't with us in August, if you'd like my free how-to guide on starting a planned giving program, you text the word guide to 56525. You can pick up your phone, do it right now. Text guide to 56525. You'll get the free how-to guide. So that's one channel. That's the PDF. That's the digital channel. If you prefer a membership channel, you like to join something to learn more, I've got Planned Giving Accelerator. It's a mind dump. I'm going to teach you over the course of a year everything I know about how to start your planned giving program. everything you need to launch your plan giving program. We're going to have live and then recorded trainings, small group Ask Me Anything sessions. I'm going to do a podcast devoted to members. All this is just for members, right? There'll be a Facebook community. So if you would like a little more, like a lot more info and want to join something for over a year, I'd estimate it'll be about an hour a week that you'll spend. So 4 to 5 hours a month, we're going to get your plan giving program started. We'll do it together. That's plantogivingaccelerator.com. If you prefer a book, if you're a physical book person, because this book was published a while ago, so I don't know that it's in digital form. So now we're talking print book. You like to hold books and you want to learn more about plan giving? This one is excellent. Plan Giving Simplified by Robert Sharp Sr., published by Wiley. It's a very good book. Keeps it simple, like I do. I make plan giving easy, accessible, affordable. That book does the same. And if you prefer a podcast channel, then I do host the #1 podcast for nonprofits, Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. It's much more than planned giving. So it's not a planned giving podcast. Of course, we talk about planned giving and all the fundraising, but we talk about everything that I think small and mid-sized shops are struggling with. Marketing, communications, branding, volunteer management, board relationships, all the fundraising topics, tech, social media, legal, everything I think small and mid-sized shops need to know. So if you're interested in podcasts, you can check out Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. And that leaves us to the Q&A. Mel, we got plenty of time for Q&A, like 15 minutes. What do we got?
Yeah, we have a few coming in. So I believe, actually, you know what? I'm going to start off with my question.
That's pretty narcissistic, really.
I know, I'm sorry.
Okay. Wow, all right. Well, you're in charge. Okay, leadership has its privileges. Okay.
Deal with it. No, I'm kidding.
What choice have I got? Go ahead.
Okay, so at the beginning you mentioned, we're going through a pandemic, and so that kind of made me think of this question, and that is, have you seen communications change when people talk about planned giving to prospects? Have you seen communications change during the pandemic, or are people pulling back and not asking as much? Like, what are you seeing in these times right now, or is there a change, or should there be a change?
Okay, there was a change for like March, April, May, June. Those 4 months, I was advising no planned giving solicitations, just a lot of listening, lots of listening, talking to donors and potential donors, excuse me, about how the pandemic is affecting them. How are you getting your food? How are you keeping in touch with your children, your grandchildren? Lots of listening for those 4 months. But then July, August, we're comfortable again. I'm comfortable again. I've been advising clients. It's okay now to be talking about planned giving. And yeah, of course, the pandemic affects everybody in the world. So you can bring it, certainly, we can't ignore it, bring it into your communications, but we're not doing it ghoulishly, right? We're not equating pandemic with death and your gift to our nonprofit. That's not what we're doing. But, now it's pretty much back to what it was, with the exception of, we may talk about planned giving in your communications, but that's in the, again, and that's in like direct mail or larger, longer pieces. If you're doing little sidebars, like I was talking about, or buck slips in a non-planned giving piece, direct mail piece, that there's no need to bring the pandemic in there. You're just talking about how simple it is for folks to include you in their will.
Great. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Oh yeah, also just to mention about that free guide that you mentioned, when you text 56525, it doesn't work in Canada. So Tony, would you be able to send that in your follow-up email, the guide, to everyone?
Oh, it doesn't work in Canada? Really?
Yeah, I just tried it, unfortunately. And so did Michelle. She said it didn't work for her either. So yeah, I'm hoping you'll be able to.
Okay, either that or I'll send you a link to it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't want to burden folks. They don't want. Okay, I may just send a link. Okay.
We've had other speakers do the same thing, and yeah, it just never Never works in
All right.
Canada. We're
Sorry about
too.
that, northern neighbors. Sorry.
No problem.
You're not forgotten. I knew business number. I know BN. So, I'm not
You
ignoring Canada.
did. You did
I
your
did.
research.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All
What else you
right.
got? Questions?
So from a different Michelle, I'm assuming they're talking about asking about plan giving. Is this something you would go back to old board members to explore?
Sure. Former board members. Yeah, they could be very good
Mm.
as long as they're still giving. Now, if they left your board and stopped giving, then, they're no longer, excuse me, the type of prospects we're looking for. But
Mm-hmm.
if they're still close to your organization, absolutely. I would say former board members, as well as current, naturally, that goes without saying, would be very good plan giving potential donors. Yeah. Yeah, Michelle, thank you.
Great. The next question coming from Chris. Do you approach lawyers handling planned giving? Do you, or how
Not,
do you?
yeah, not in these stages, Chris, not in the early stage. I think what Chris is alluding to is going to attorneys who do estate planning and giving them promotional material about your nonprofit so that they'll talk to their clients about it.
Right.
Yeah, a couple of reasons I don't do that at the outset, Chris. And by the outset, I mean like first 5 years, maybe 5-7 years. A few reasons. First, those types of allied professionals, you could call them, like attorneys, financial planners, maybe CPAs, accountants. They're rarely asked, where should I give? I mean, it does happen, but it's rare. Think of your own situations. Each of us, like we have too many charities. There are some we can't support that we would like to. So the problem isn't knowing where to give, it's how and how much. So they'd be going to their attorney and saying, I want to include Chris's nonprofit in my will. How much can I afford? And please do it for me. Or is this the best way? Or is there some other way? So they're usually not asked where to give. And the second reason is if they are asked where to give, they're solicited by lots of different charities. So what's the guarantee? There is none that they're going to talk about your charity, Chris, instead of all the others, or lay out the 8 or 10 different brochures that they were given. It's just, I'd rather you go to the low hanging fruit, those prospects that I was talking about, for the first 5 years at least, before you start spending time and money on materials and talking to those professionals. I don't see a lot of good coming from that. I mean, not that it's negative. I don't see a lot of gifts coming that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. And along that same topic, Jake is asking, is it much work on the receiving end to set up? Do you need lawyers? What's involved?
No, Jacob, you don't. That's why I'm keeping it easy, accessible, and affordable. No, you don't need lawyers. That's the whole point of this. Starting with bequests, you're referring people to their own lawyers to do the work. You're just giving them the basics. Remember, 1, 2, 3, your legal name, your office, and your tax ID number. So no, you don't need any special skills on your board or on your staff or any at all. I'm an attorney, and maybe I'm the only one who will tell you, Jacob, you don't need an attorney.
Right. Jake says thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. The next question coming from Sarah. Would you open the conversation within a handwritten letter about multiple topics, or should this only be the question, or should this be the only question in this letter or card?
If you're doing a card, Sarah, I wouldn't just open with, dear Sarah, we're encouraging gifts by will. Is that something you would consider? That's a bad opener. So something else, your usual, the way you open a note to someone, and then say, something new at the organization, we're now encouraging gifts by will, etc. So if you can keep it to one topic, I like that. And, I like note cards, like you're saying, Sarah. I've got a sample here, even, like little cards like this. This is one that someone sent back to me after so you send a handwritten note. What do you get back? You get a handwritten note back, right? So a little card like that. That's what I'm talking about. Instead of filling 8.5 by 11 sheets, it's not necessary. I mean, you could do it if you want. And you direct mail campaign, of course, that's what you're going to be doing. But But if you're not going that route, you don't have to. You don't have to fill an 8.5 by 11 sheet. I hope that
Okay.
helps, Sarah.
Haven't heard back from her yet, but I'm sure it did.
Let's assume. It's safe to assume. We'll just assume Sarah's now
We'll assume.
feeling supported and helped. Safe assumption.
Next question. Oh, there she goes. She's saying thanks now.
Okay.
All right. Next question from Anonymous. Do you have some tips or ideas to acknowledge planned gifts? And I know you kind of went into that, but maybe there's some others that you might have. How does it differ from acknowledging regular gifts, regular donations?
Sure. We don't take anonymous questions. So what's next? No. So Anonymous, you are. We just uncovered Anonymous in the United States. The guy who was the former not Health and Human Services, Homeland Security deputy assistant secretary, I think. He just uncovered himself. The guy Anonymous who wrote the book and the New York Times op-ed. So maybe this is him. Maybe he's gone under again. Michael.
Maybe.
How do you acknowledge? You say thank you very sincerely. Thank you, Anonymous. It means a lot to us when you first learn, right? You want to be sincere because it's a big step for someone to take. So be sincere with a real genuine thank you. You include them in a recognition society. You got to have a recognition society for your planned giving donors. You asked Anonymous, is it like recognizing other gifts? In this respect, it is. You have a recognition society for folks at different dollar levels, right? It varies, obviously. Some charities start at 1,000, some might start at 50, but whatever their levels are, you have them. You need a recognition society for your nonprofit as well, for your planned giving donors as well. What I mean. And a little aside for that, Anonymous, when you're naming your recognition society, don't just call it the Heritage Circle or the Legacy Fund, Legacy Society, Heritage Circle, Legacy Society Circle. Pick something unique, iconic to your organization. I've sometimes encouraged the founding year. If you started in 1976. It's a 1976 society. Maybe it's a person, the founder, if he or she is a recognizable name. Something unique to your organization. Let's stay away from the Legacy Circle Heritage Fund. Those are ubiquitous. No, stand out. Pick something iconic.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. And
Thank you, Anonymous.
Who is this anonymous person? I don't know. Question coming from Ines, and this is actually an interesting question. How should we steward or just engage with planned gift donors during the time period where they say that they're going to, give that gift, and then between the point of when we actually receive that gift? Like, how do you engage with a person during that time?
Well, Inez, I don't know if you mean actually receiving, meaning that they've died and now the gift has become a gift of cash.
I'm assuming that.
Is that what you mean? Or between the time they say they'll do it and then they actually maybe document it for you, or they say, I actually have done it. Let's take the longer term one. So how do you steward someone once they've made that commitment? Well, you thank them the way I just described for Anonymous. Yes, I'm encouraging Anonymous to identify him or herself, but you don't have to. It's all right. It's fine. You include them in your recognition society, right? So you welcome them that way, and then treat them as insiders. Now they're VIPs. There's a gift to your nonprofit alongside their husband, right? Alongside their children, their grandchildren. There's a gift to your nonprofit. That's a pretty big deal. So are there communications that you share with VIPs that you can include them in? Do that. Doesn't cost you anything. You're already preparing the communication, right? Doesn't cost you anything new. You're having an event. When we go back to in-person events, can you have a little VIP seating section? What does that cost you? It's the cost of masking tape to tape off the seats. You're already paying for the seats. Can you set a few aside for your planned giving donors? Of course you can. So those are some ways, but just generally treat them as insiders, as VIPs.
Great. Yeah, I think that is the best way to steward someone, for sure.
Okay.
Glad you know what?
Thanks, Mel. Yeah.
No problem. Tony, I feel like we have answered all the questions. That was really fast.
That's incredible because
Yeah.
it's now quarter to the hour. So we said
And then
45 minutes.
we
44
did. We
minutes,
kind of nailed it.
16 minutes to the hour. Woo! Okay. I told you it was going to be a
Good
quick
job.
shot. That many.
Yeah.
I know Mel is about to sign off, but I want to thank Mel and everybody at Keela Labs. Thank you very much. Thank you, Inez, also for helping. And thanks to each of you for being with us. It was a real pleasure. Hope you got something out of it. Hope you learned how to start your plan giving program. Quick shot.
Thank you, Tony. It was such a pleasure to have you. And I think I know that you've left, some people inspired by this and to elevate their plan giving ground. So thank you. Before we do sign off, though, I just wanted to remind you all that our next webinar will be on Wednesday. So next week, November 4th at 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. EST. This session will actually be led by our very own Peter Cragen, who's one of our senior account executives here at Keela, and he'll be presenting his webinar titled Best Practices with Keela, Donor Segmentation and Filtering. We haven't done a ton of best practices webinars before, but we've heard a ton of great feedback, so we're excited to have that one again. If you haven't already registered for that, I believe, I can't see right now, it looks like hopefully Inez popped that into the chat there. And lastly, I just wanted to remind everyone that today's session will be recorded, has been recorded, and you'll receive the recording along with Tony's slide deck and a couple of his resources from him by either today or tomorrow. And with that, I think we'll just end it there. I'm so impressed with us for closing it on time here. Thanks again, Tony, for joining us. It's always a pleasure. You are such a great person. And I wish you all the best for next week in the election.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish our country the best. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So
all right,
everybody.
everyone. We'll take care and we'll see you next time.